chapter of the American Red Cross, and she's going to be talking about what the American Red Cross is doing to help the victims of Katrina. Which is very sombering.
Which is just
sombering,
overwhelming.
Yes, so much is going on, and kind of fill us in what we're doing here around in Atlanta to help the victims of Katrina.
Well, Atlanta is really rallying its resources. The Red Cross, of course, is very overwhelmed by the numbers. It's larger than anything we've ever dealt with.
Really?
I heard an estimate from FEMA of 90,000 square miles affected. And we really don't have a good feel of the total number of people that have come into Atlanta, and that's a little bit of a problem. Generally, when we are dealing with a mass disaster, people are in our shelters or, staying in a facility that we are aware of. Here, we've got people scattered all over in homes with relatives and friends and in rental units that they tried to get with what money they had if they evacuated independently. People are still in hotels and motels, and each day as those families reach a financial crisis, they're coming forward to the Red Cross, and we have no way of knowing the total number that are actually here. So I've heard estimates upwards of 30,000.
30,000 will be here in the
that are already here.
Already here.
And we know that there are another 10,000 to evacuate just in New Orleans. So we're trying to make our plans for at least another 10 to 15,000. And the families that are coming, their situation varies. Some packed some things and left, but like with most hurricane evacuations, they planned on 2, 3, maybe 4 days. And Katrina was a Category 1 storm when they left. And of course, overnight, that Sunday night, it became a 5.
Yes.
And while people were sleeping, it's probably the worst case scenario you can imagine. So people woke up that next morning to a Category 5 hurricane, and a lot of them got in their cars and headed out immediately.
With just a couple of suitcases.
With just what they could grab, right.
Home.
And we're still getting people coming. At the Georgia Tech shelter the other day, we had several people arrive wearing only a hospital gown.
A hospital gown? Oh, that's sad.
Because they had been screened somewhere else for lacerations or bruises or, whatever health needs. Yesterday, a gentleman arrived wearing pajama bottoms and slippers, had nothing else that he owned. And so that's still what's walking through the door, and we expect more.
Well, tell me, what does the American Red Cross do? I know you hear this, in advance, the storm is coming. What do you do to prepare for this kind of disaster like Katrina? You obviously knew it was going to be a 5 sometime.
Oh, yeah.
So what do you do? Because you know that Red Cross is either going to go there or you're going to be helping people in other states. What do you do to prepare?
Well, recruiting and training volunteers is an ongoing thing that we do. And
are you a volunteer?
I am a volunteer. Okay. Yes, I'm a volunteer. Wow. I'm a stay-home mom, and that's sort of my chosen volunteer mission. And I've been doing it. I've been doing the disaster half of it for almost 5 years. I was a first aid and CPR instructor some years ago, and stopped volunteering for a while, and then came back after 9/11, which a lot of our current pool of volunteers came on after 9/11. So now we're faced with the daunting task also of starting to train and put out there more and more volunteers who are calling to offer their services right now. So up front, we really were, our standing volunteer pool was just not big enough in any way to respond to the number of families
that came. People didn't know how enormous, how many people there would be.
Sure, and we were watching the weather. We were preparing early on last, Thursday and Friday the week before, for Katrina to hit Florida.
Yeah, Miami.
And the great concern was Miami, and it was flooding that was going to be the big concern. And we have volunteers who have enough time in their schedule to travel, what we call deployed, just like the military term, and we deploy them to other cities and counties to help. So we actually had sent some nurses and some staff and volunteers on down to Florida in preparation. Our volunteer hurricane watch team was monitoring the weather, looking for changes, and they actually set up round the clock, 24 hours a day, a hurricane watch team, and they have somebody monitoring the weather, somebody monitoring transportation, someone monitoring sheltering needs, and those are all volunteers.
Cover it all.
And so we started days in advance of Katrina hitting landfall in Florida. And we were hearing from weather experts that the water in the Gulf was really warm, and the concern was if Katrina continued across Florida and went on across the Gulf, either headed towards the Panhandle or towards Texas, and hit that warm water. We heard estimates as warm as 91, 92 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico.